Nearly Late, prequel to Nearly Wed, written by Katie Frey, narrated by Madeline Starr. 1. I could come. Are you coming? Jenny Doon hated herself for sending the text. The clock next to her bed blinked 1:07 a.m. His absence at the late hour was a truer reflection of his affections than any text he could send. She was 28, old enough to know better, but too young to care. The best thing about dating Riley? Thinking she might change him. Believing she could. It was a belief she clung to. Jenny Doon wasn't a quitter. I could come. Her phone buzzed with his answer. I could come. She stared at the single line of text. No emojis, no indication he wanted to be there. Okay, if you want. I'm still awake for a bit. She clicked send, and just like that signed her fate for another sleepless night. The best kind. And so her scramble began. Jenny bolted down the stairs. First stop, her kitchen. First step, parceling pre-made cookie dough onto a baking tray. In 10 to 12 minutes, her house would smell like a Mrs. Fields bakery. Very domestic. If the way to a man's heart was through his stomach, she had the roadmap in place, and it cost her less than $5. Plus, the cookies might help her convince him to be her +1 at next week's high school reunion. She pushed back the thought, resolving to bring it up after a stiff drink. She needed liquid courage to broach the subject. Next stop, bathroom. Propping a leg onto her sink, she whipped a razor out and ran the hot water tap. Hand soap was a poor substitute for shaving gel, but she was on a timeline. Moments later, her lanky stems were smooth. Well, smoother. Smoothish. She grinned, exhaling in an effort to calm her twisting stomach. There was no cause for distress. She was good at this. Her social circle currently included both a model, Jill, and a stylist, Raoul. The perks were extensive. As long as she kept her mind off the soul-crushing good looks of her friends, the upside to Jill's tutelage, in particular, was tremendous. Jill had imparted all the tricks of the trade and funneled makeup her way after every goodie bag she'd get from industry parties. Jenny imagined it was easier being generous when you were born beautiful. She twisted a tube of Adore Me, a perfect shade of raspberry red, a punchy color even her persnickety friend Raoul agreed made her emerald green eyes sparkle. A cursory look in the mirror, followed by a cautious smile. She was kinda pretty. Okay, her hair was a dumpster fire, but it had been that way for so long she'd started to look past it. Her makeup was on point, barely there. She was totally achieving the effortless look Jill preached. The shrill beeping of her oven timer broke her reverie, and she rushed to the kitchen. Cookies were done, makeup was on, and legs shaved inside 15 minutes. Now all she had to do was wait, and make it look like she hadn't tried at all. The cookies were cool by the time he arrived. She smiled anyway. Fake it till you make it. Sorry, traffic was bad. He stood at the entrance, peeling his leather coat off and tossing it over the banister. She bristled. There was a hook right next to him. Yeah, I can only imagine the holdups at 2 a.m. Must be awful. Her voice was terse. Not a good look on her. Light. You're meant to be light and breezy. Men don't want to be lectured. He's not here for that. So, are we doing this or what? He took another step toward her. He smelled like that chef smell that stuck to him after every shift at Auberge. Like salt and fish, cognac, butter, and earthy mushrooms. He smelled like a bad habit. He didn't have a takeaway packet with him. So no, she supposed he hadn't brought her a plat du jour. Swallowing, she frowned, unsure if she was ready to see this relationship for what it was. What was the point of sleeping with a Michelin chef if they didn't even bring dinner? Riley took a step toward her. He wore a tight white t-shirt, and she could see the ridges of muscle beneath the thin cotton. A bad habit indeed. Jenny didn't answer, she just stood. Her apartment was small, barely large enough for his ego, let alone the two of them. It was a third-floor, rent-controlled walk-up, a rarity in downtown Chicago, and she was lucky to have it. But right now, it didn't feel cozy, it just felt small. Riley had a habit of taking all the air out of the room. One last hit, she decided, just like that, and in the foyer of her apartment, she let the strap of her tank fall from her shoulder. He didn't say anything, preferring his position as a voyeur. Then, in a breath, it changed. He took 2 steps toward her and with one hand lifted her chin. He might be everything wrong with her dating life, but for a few seconds, she was transported to a moment of feeling utterly feminine, small, delicate, clean, and even sexy. In the dark, her short hair didn't bother her nearly as much, and of course, the scars were harder to see. They didn't go to her bedroom, settling instead on the couch, and having disposed of her tank top, she pushed her jeans down, stepping out of them and kicking them aside. Jill was always telling her, if you aren't confident, fake it. Nothing is sexier than a confident woman. Jenny could think of one thing sexier, and he was standing in front of her, unbuttoning his shirt.